If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you work within the real estate investing industry. There's another good chance that you would like to increase the sales of your products or services. Well, you're in the right place. United States Real Estate Investor is a platform you need to place your brand directly in front of your target audience. With our focused, growing audience of real estate investing beginners, enthusiasts, and seasoned professionals, you can continually reach our captivated viewers and listeners with ease. To learn more or to get started today, just visit UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. That's UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. Get ready to increase your brand awareness and your bottom line. Attract clients with content.
Universe. Media. Network. 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 Network.
Welcome to This Month in Real Estate Investing, where we help you separate the noise from the news. I'm your host, James Brown, and in this episode, we'll be breaking down a variety of real estate investing news items, including Judge denies Zillow's request, Newport Beach financier arrested for $100 million, and AI wealth is already sending San Francisco real estate soaring. Don't forget, if you are watching on YouTube, you can share your thoughts and questions during the show. Also note that if you're an investor-focused agent, you can apply to join our investor-focused agent network, or if you're an investor looking to connect with an investor-focused agent in your market, you can go to UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/agents. All right, let's start the show. All right, our guests today are Zach Thomas and Daniel Raup. In that order, why don't you each introduce yourselves, share a little bit about your background and what types of investing or real estate you guys are in.
So my name is Zach Thomas. I currently own Here Ventures, where we specialize in transaction coordination and dirty title curative work by offering paralegals for transaction coordination and support. Right now, we really specify in heirs and genealogical title issue cases throughout the United States.
Fantastic. Welcome, welcome. Daniel.
I'm Daniel Raup. Thank you for having me. I am founder of Fortitude Investment Group. We help business owners and real estate investors keep what they've built when they sell, using parts of the tax code that most people unfortunately find about 45 days too late. So we don't necessarily help people get rich. We help people who already got there stay there.
Right on. Those are both very important parts of the real estate transaction. Cool. Well, let's jump into the news, guys. So I'll introduce each news item and then we'll just comment on them and let people know what we think. And again, if anybody's on YouTube, you can comment, ask questions, and we can answer them. And for Zach and Daniel, Antonio, he's putting comments and stuff in the private chat over on the side here in StreamYard, so you can kind of follow along. All right, so let's dive in. From real estate news, real estate has a trust problem and we're making it worse. They're saying in the commentary that there's a lot of public disputes among brokerages, and they're talking more about like the real estate agent brokerage side of the business. I don't know how much you guys have to comment on that. And but anyway, there's all these disputes and mergers going on right now. A lot of shakeups in the industry, and a lot of it's just getting aired out. And so, they're talking about it, kind of hurting our reputation because we're kind of airing out dirty laundry. So,
Well,
any
and
comments on
honestly,
that?
I mean, with everything that's going on, I think the best way forward, just generally, is to focus on who is actually served, rather than interbusiness relationships between brokerages, who's merging with who. It still needs to be focused on the actual client. That's who, in the end, we're all here for and to protect.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, this case is really about access to a complete picture by the investors. And that's the exact issue and problem that we solve at Fortitude, just on the exit side of real estate. Buyers worry about hidden listings. I worry about hidden options. More investors that are sitting on an appreciated property think that they only have two choices: sell and pay the taxes, or sell and buy another building. They've never been shown a full menu of things like DSTs, Delaware Statutory Trusts, UPREITs, opportunity zones. The danger isn't just an incomplete listing, it's incomplete options.
Yeah, I love that. Like from the agent side, we have a lot of different options, and I'm kind of more on the investing side as well. So those things you mentioned, DSTs and REITs, yeah, there's so many investors, especially, just kind of blinders on single family home investors. They might build a portfolio and then not realize, oh, we can do all those other things, not just 1031 out, kicking the can down the road. So that's what you've got. I recommend any investor to reach out and see what their options are before they make any moves. Like you said, right? Sometimes people come in, that's 45 days after it's sold, and they're like, oh.
Earlier the better. That's it.
Right.
And just to plug myself, it's a wealth of knowledge, but 1031dst.com, there's a tremendous amount of information there. And the sooner you go in there and take a look and sign up, you're getting all of the proper pre-transaction information that you need to make an informed decision. And that's really what this is about, right? It's about the client. It's about making sure that they understand what all their different options are and that they are planning. It's discipline over deferral. It's getting ahead of it.
Yeah. And, something that I've learned, there's a lot of different types of 1031s, right? Like, a lot of people don't know that there's a reverse 1031 and all sorts of other things where you don't have to get stuck with that time clock ticking with a normal 1031 by doing a reverse. It's going to cost you more, but you're not going to end up with the clock running out and having very limited options and then being a super motivated seller or buyer. So
that's right.
Yeah. Cool.
There's also, a lot of people, if they didn't know and they were too late, oftentimes we're still within the clock and we can use an opportunity zone fund to continue deferral, provided the client is qualified and it's suitable for them, of course. But it's education. It's people understanding what their options are.
Yep.
I think that's the big part so far that I've seen in the last 20 years is education part. And I think a lot of times, it doesn't matter if you're an investor or a realtor or you're on title side like me, we forget that. I'm guilty of it, realizing we do this for a living, but our clients do not. And so they don't actually know what to ask. And it's kind of up to us to help guide them in the right direction, to give them all their options to make that educated decision. And we see that most often, that's where the ball gets dropped.
Yeah. Good point. Let's see, back to this article specifically. They were also commenting that it's pretty low barrier to entry as far as, for agents specifically. It's different amongst states. So like here in Colorado, it's 168 hours of coursework before you can take the test, right? Michigan, on the other hand, I've been researching this. Michigan, as an example, is like 40 hours. That's a real low barrier to entry. So you get people, no matter whether they've taken 40 hours or 168 hours, you jump in and you still don't know everything. You're book learned, but there's so much more to learn along the way. And it's inconsistent is kind of what the article is pointing out. And so the 40 versus 168 hours is just an example, just state to state. So more education, more training, more accountability is super important. So in fact, there was a bill just, they were trying to pass it, a nationwide thing, basically creating some form of accountability, so that when like a client goes to an agent, they know that they're knowledgeable in whatever area. So whether it's residential versus commercial or neighborhood to neighborhood, and it's such a gray area thing. It was shot down pretty quickly, even though they've been working on it for 2 years. But I think it is important to have some way to vet professionals. But the logistics of that's where the reality is pretty tough. So
Well, I'm in North Carolina, and they currently are trying to figure that out as well, especially on the investor side, because not all investors are bad. There's really good people out there, but the ones that get the most attention are the ones that do bad. Like, and so, it's kind of like Oregon. Oregon has structured investing, right? You get a license to invest in, whether you're doing rehabs or fix and flips or wholesaling, whatever you do, you get a license. You have the ethics and everything to follow on it. It's a start, right? And I think that's one of the things, is to clarify roles and definitions and ensure that the public and everybody is understanding what these people do. And that I think will weed out a lot of the bad players.
that's interesting. I had not heard that about Oregon. I'm curious exactly what they have to go through to get licensed, right? Like, and
Yeah,
you're talking about something different than like wholesalers in, I think, Illinois have to be licensed realtors. They have to go through that to wholesale. But you're talking about something different, sounds like.
Yeah. So it's kind of like they pay their fees and everything to the state and county, but they have certain requirements. Like if you're doing a fix and flip and it's under $10,000, you have to be licensed to do that. Right. And I think that's a good idea, because it's going to weed out some of those bad players that are just going to do what they call lipstick on a pig and jack up the price. Right. It's going to hold these people to accountability and making them back the work they do. Right. And they're still, it's a work in progress. It's probably one of the best structures that I've seen, but it's going to change over time. And I think the hardest part is the definitions, right? Like wholesalers are not fix and flippers or rehabbers. We know they're out there, but they shouldn't be treated as the same. Somebody buying a property and rehabbing it should not be treated the same under the same guidelines of wholesaling. I think that's where it will change in Oregon over the next few years, is kind of fine tuning those jobs and definitions.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Well, hey, let's keep things moving. We'll go to the next article from Real Estate News again. Judge denies Zillow's request for MRED Compass calls and emails. Let me try to explain. So there's a lawsuit around Zillow saying that the MLS MRED, Midwest Real Estate Data, and Compass Real Estate, which is a large brokerage, that they're coordinating limited listings transparency. I think, Daniel, maybe you had alluded to that earlier. There's a lot going on there. But so basically, they weren't wanting to send their data, their listings, real estate listings, to Zillow, and Zillow's suing them. What's interesting about this case is that it was basically kind of put on pause, but not totally shut down. So it sounds like Zillow does have a case. This is a big debate in the industry right now, especially with Compass, wanting to kind of keep some of their listings internal without letting the public see all of them. I could go on and on about that. But anyway, that's what this lawsuit is about. So currently there's a temporary restraining order extended on this. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Do we know if Zillow's actually sharing the same information to Compass?
I mean, Zillow, from my understanding, has just got the same IDX feed from any, MLS. And this particular MLS is holding back data sent to Zillow. So I don't think there's the other direction, a problem the other direction, that Zillow's holding back anything. Like, they want to get as many listings out as possible because they make their money off of agents.
So it's essentially going to come down to transparency and how it affects the consumer is pretty much what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, Zach, it's like, who are we talking about? Who are we serving? It's sellers and buyers.
Yeah.
If I was to make a prediction, I'd say that Zillow's going to win this one.
Transparency is going to help the investors. That's it, right? The sellers and the buyers, the more transparent things are, it's a free market system saying, okay, this is a product, this is what we have, this is what it is. Get me the highest and best price, if I'm a seller, and get me the data on what I'm buying. What exactly am I buying if I'm the buyer, and that free flow of information back and forth. You can see it obviously from the perspective of agents and realtors. They work real hard to get contacts out there, and they want to find pocket listings and be able to control both sides of the transaction, and they're feeding their families as well. So you don't blame a firm like Compass or somebody for wanting to control that data. Sure. When the biggest product we have as a world, as a planet, is our information at this point, everyone wanting to control their own information makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Can see the motivation for sure. Yeah. Well, we'll see. This might pop back up in one of our other shows. Sometimes these do.
I don't think this is going to be the last time we hear of this.
No. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's so many crazy things going on. All right, our next article from Fox 5, Washington, D.C. Real estate broker who allegedly targeted Muslim homebuyers with predatory sales goes on trial. I'll just read this first line. A Minnesota real estate broker is on trial in a civil case alleging he targeted Muslim, particularly Somali, homebuyers with predatory contract for deed transactions that featured inflated home prices, large down payments, and balloon payments that many buyers could not meet. This is my world, guys. So rent to own, contract for deed. We actually don't do contract for deed specifically, but it's similar. Basically, it's seller financing, right? So I dug into this article because I'm like, what's going on here? There was some missing information on this, but this agent specifically, I think he'd sold 160 homes this way, and I'd really love to see his contracts and terms on it, because like I actually teach a CE class, continuing education class for agents and lenders, specifically about rent to own, lease options, this same world. And in that class, I kind of dispel some myths, but I also acknowledge the bad ways that some people do set up lease options or contract for deed situations where they do put buyers in a bad position. And it has given this industry a terrible reputation because there's a lot of individuals like this guy and companies setting people up for failure. And it's sad. Like the guy that's going to be one of the Somali guys, during this trial, he's like, he had to send some of his family back home. It's going to take him, he estimated, 5 years just to recover from this. But again, I don't want to take over this conversation, but I do have a lot to comment on it. Like, yeah, go for it, Zach.
I do a lot of lease to own and have done a lot of lease to own transactions over the years.
Great.
And contract for deed, and if done correctly, it can do a lot of good and help get entrance into the housing market, where otherwise they wouldn't. But I have also seen it be more of like predatory lending, right? Like recently, D.R. Horton's lending team had more or less the same kind of issue. The deals were structured to easily get into, but almost a guarantee fell on the end. And they structure them, these bad players, when they structure them wrong, I see that they structure them for a easy regaining of the property, right? No foreclosures, there's no curing period or anything like that. I honestly think that if a lot of states were to make it where it was a mandatory curing period, or some sort of procedural thing on the end in the event of default, that might clear up some of these predatory lending parts on this for lease to own. But they can be done for good, right? I mean, even you as an agent handling this, it is. I've seen it work quite well. But once again, as always, anybody that's getting involved in these sort of things that they are not 100% educated on, then you need to reach out to somebody that does understand. Talk to your attorney, talk to a broker that is educated on it, because it can do a lot of good, but in the wrong hands, I've seen people use and abuse it.
Yeah. Like, oh, go ahead, Daniel.
This is the opposite of everything we stand for. The tell on any real estate structure is simple. Is it built so the client wins, or is it built so the client fails? And when a deal is engineered around a default, that's not a product, it's a trap. Well, underserved and faith communities deserve legitimate structures and best interest or fiduciary advice, not predators who target them. And I think it's, back to Zach's point, it's really important for investors or just people out there looking to put a deal together or invest or purchase something for themselves. They surround themselves with high quality centers of influence that act in their best interest.
Yeah.
Well, and for the investors out there, understand that if you want to do things and you don't want to do it right, you will end up ruining it for all of everybody else. And it's up to us to police ourselves as well, because, just face it, there's a lot of areas that are unregulated in certain things, but understand that if we see a broker doing something like this, it could cause everybody in the ecosystem trouble.
Sure.
That's quite literally how legislative action comes around.
Yeah, we all wear the black eye. That's right.
Yeah, well, and I spent last year fighting a state bill in North Carolina State Senate because of it, because of an actions of a investment group in Florida that caused an issue so big that our state decided to try and regulate issues without fully understanding. So, like in this kind of case, right? If you're a bad apple, you can ruin it for us all, and it's up to all of us to police it so that way we have a healthy system.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I was going to say too, like, if anybody's thinking about doing a lease option or a contract for deed, feel free to reach out to me. Like, I believe in helping people first and foremost. And our contract, as an example, it has a place for at least another real estate agent on their side, the buyer side, to sign, and or an attorney. Like I had an attorney in Florida suggest that I do that, just so there's somebody in each corner. So it's not just us, putting somebody into a situation where they could fail. I also loop in a licensed loan officer to help really understand that buyer's situation, figure out why they can't get a loan now and what it's going to take to get a loan in the future, and also how long. And so, like in this article, this guy, he gave the guy that's going to be in this hearing, gave him 5 years, but I guess he came up to the end of his 5 years, and this agent, held his feet to the fire. I know we usually do like 2 to 3 years and give the option to extend, but we've done up to 10 years. So as long as somebody's paying their rent, though, might as well extend it, right? Not hold their feet to the fire. That's how I look at it. Not everybody does that. Some people are predatory, and they get to the end of that option period, and they're like, "Oh, you're out." So I really want to hear both sides of this story, but I don't know if that's going to be available publicly, but I'm curious. So let's take a break and learn from one of our partners.
If you are serious about real estate and tired of guessing, you need to know about Real Expert Talks. This is where real questions meet real experts. As a member, you get direct one-on-one access to experienced real estate professionals. No courses, no fluff. Just focused video calls where you ask your question, get the answer, and move forward fast. 5 minutes, 15, or a full deep dive. You choose. One conversation can save you months of mistakes. And if you're an expert, this platform was built for you. Real Expert Talks lets you monetize what you already know. Set your own rates, control your schedule, get paid to give advice, build your authority, and expand your reach without chasing clients or selling anything extra. No middlemen, no noise, just expertise, access, and action. If you want answers, sign up as a member. If you have answers, sign up as an expert. Go to Real Expert Talks and turn knowledge into momentum. RealExpertTalks.com.
All right, let's get back to the news from The Real Deal. Newport Beach financier arrested for $100 million federal bank fraud. I can't pronounce the guy's name, but as prosecutors allege he falsified title insurance policies to make it appear that his company held first lien positions on certain collateralized properties when other creditors actually had priority. That's a mouthful. I think there's a lot in this article to dig into, but anyway.
And so this is my side of the table
Yeah.
all day long, being entitled, and this isn't the first time I've seen this happen.
Mm.
I've seen it a lot where most recently where I've got involved because of a broker brought the case to me, seller finance, things like that. It essentially, it usually happens when it's the smaller title insurance companies.
Mm.
When it's not Stewart or WFG or First American, the big national companies, when you have some of the smaller ones, like you see in Florida, you see some in Texas, those are ones where you can see kind of the switching, right? I'm curious to see how this turns out because that's going to affect our side and how things are handled. There's a lot of states like North Carolina, which you in real estate on the title side, your attorney's office and all that cannot insure the work they do. Right. So, but if you go over the state line to South Carolina, an attorney can use title insurance for his own work. Now, I think honestly, in this case, if they were to ensure that the attorney that is handling the review and certification is not also the insuring party, that would have prevented this. That oversight. And I think on this case, your smaller insurance title agencies, big deals of high worth, I think should always go to one or more of the national companies that have a bigger regulatory body.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask like if you're picking a title company, how do you know? There's some questions to ask. Like, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
so your first one is I would ask who they are approved to insure with. You have your big national ones. Everybody knows where it's WFG or Stewart, First American, Investors Title. Those are your big national underwriters. You would automatically recognize it when they answer that. A lot of your good title companies and attorneys' offices, depending on the state you're in, are insured or insurable by more than one. Right? And you, as a realtor or your buyer, can request as a buyer, hey, I would prefer to get my stuff insured with First American or whatever. I know a lot of investors and a lot of clients that our company handles the coordination and work for have that one, that preferred, hey, we buy all of our investment properties in, say, investors title insurance. They know who to talk to if there's a problem. That would prevent some of the oversight of, because what this sounds like is when they issued the title insurance policy and you get your Exhibit A, explaining everything, they switched the loans. So one is in first position and one was in second position, even though it's not done per the recording, right? That's where I think he kind of worked this out to defraud a lot of this.
Yeah.
This is a textbook case why we underwrite the operator before we underwrite the deal.
Yes.
A beautiful pro forma means nothing if you haven't verified who actually sits in first lien position. And retail investors get hurt chasing yield from sponsors that they never vetted. The diligence itself, who's the operator, what's the capital stack, who really holds the senior position. That's not paperwork. That's the entire job.
Yep. And honestly, that's why, like, I have a company that I do, is because, you can have TCs that might have taken a class or two, but like my company is all decade plus paralegals. They're familiar with reading the title policy, familiar with all of that process, so they can kind of more or less reduce liability. or risk for your buyer. It is. You do have to validate, especially if you're realtors in this. If they deal in a certain area, make friends and understand who the attorney is and the paralegal is in each firm. Understand who they insure with and how they operate. Right. That's your biggest case of your. That's the first step of lowering the liability on this happening. That and
Operator underwriting over deal chasing, right?
yes, yeah, because even if you go to a law firm for closings, the law firm's only as good as the paralegals they employ. And if the paralegal is not as familiar or how the deal is structured, or I'm sure, James, you've come across it where they're not 100% understanding of what lease to own is.
Right.
It can make or break a deal, but it also can cause problems and oversight and issues on the title insurance side. So most definitely underwrite the operator before you do the deal. Build your village and know who to ask.
Yep. It noted in this article too that there was a separate dispute involving fraud in some commercial properties. So sounds like there's probably a record out there on this guy. So
Yeah.
a little bit of due diligence. And I've partnered with some general partners for syndications buying apartment buildings. We have vetted them, those operators, making sure that they've done at least, we were kind of set 3 full deals that have gone full cycle, that bought, fixed up. These are value add apartment syndications. They have to have at least done 3 where they went full circle, refinanced or sold without issues, or maybe they had issues, but they were able to deal with them, so like you said, Daniel, like vetting the operators, that's key. And part of the process, like for those of us that were more involved on the raising the capital side, we did background checks on each other because we were kind of put together, and one person in our group didn't pass. It was kind of a minor infraction, but it was a red flag, and we said, okay, you're out of here, because we don't want anybody with any kind of bad background, as part of this, because it reflects badly on all of us, right? So, it's not the deal, it's the operator.
Yep.
So that was a good point, Daniel. Yeah, and thanks, Zach, for your background and title. This is really interesting and valuable to hear that. So, well, let's go to our next article from NAREIT, NAREIT. AI adoption in real estate moves from hype to implementation. Let's see. We're just talking about AI becoming more integrated, specifically with commercial operations. They're talking about using AI to help them with their strategies and decision making. So I know I'm using it in my business for all those layers. How about you guys?
So I use it. So I've actually seen some firms implement this internally.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's certain things that AI is not a replacement, it's a tool, right? And so as far as research data and processing, all of that, it works really well. You always got to verify it, but I think one of the fine lines that I'm seeing is, look, I know of a firm right now that has integrated an AI system into their closing process. there has to be other options, not just the AI, right? In this case, the AI is set to it. For instance, will send a link to the email for the seller information. It's a simple process, right? But we have clients that are older. They are not as tech savvy. They will not be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with the implementation of the AI is they did not ensure a process of a human being actually entering the information. Right? So implementing AI is great on especially title side or real estate brokerage side, but it does need to have an option of override by the person.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
As far as I've seen some law firms, especially on the litigation side, use AI, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini to build casework, right? Case archives, things like that, and it does quite well. Saves them a lot of time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to change any. I think we're probably going to move forward, but it's not going to change and replace all of us. I know that's the big thing now, is that everybody thinks it's going to replace everybody. It's not, but I do think it's going to change as we go on the process and how we're using it.
Yep. Yeah, I know I use it in many ways, like I said, but like one example is the first thing I started using it for was writing property descriptions, which is painful. Because it's basically a bulleted list of features, right? And you want to make it sound nice and tell a story, and like, oh God, AI is really good at that. Like, it's a large language model, right? So it's good at writing things like that. The problem that we keep seeing is that people are using it like that, like I am, but it's not compliant. And we have a lot of like things like, you can't say, oh, this is, great for kids. Well, now you're alienating some other group, right? And I get it, right? But my point is, use the AI, sure, let it do the heavy lifting, but then you have to go back in and make sure it's compliant. And I'll put in my prompt, like, hey, make sure this is compliant, fair housing laws, but still, it needs that human touch. And I'll go back in and I'll rewrite it, right? Make it, smooth it out even more, make it more natural, because AI it throws in M dashes and just some, you can't get it to stop doing that. It's so annoying, but anyway.
It's a tool.
It's
right?
a tool.
It helps. I view it as having your own little assistant.
Yeah.
It can't do everything, but it can help get you what you need as far as data and your secretarial work.
Yeah.
AI is doing two distinct things in my world, and I keep them separate. So first, it's making the back office easier and faster, document review, diligence, research. And the second, and this is the part that people miss, the AI built out, the AI, build out it's reshaping demand for data centers and power. And that's already showing up in the institutional real estate portfolios that we're involved in. It is, one of the most talked about real estate sectors at this point, both from the power infrastructure as well as the data center side. But structuring a tax deferred exit around a specific family situation, that's still judgment and trust. And software speeds up due diligence, but a licensed human, to both of your points, is still accountable for the strategy. And that's where, AI, eventually it's going to be people with AI against people without AI. It's not going to be AI against people, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, asking good questions, the in-person part of it, like I could see somebody might say something and AI can listen to what they're saying, but sometimes what people say and what they mean are two different things, right? And in a human, we're really good at, like, say we're sitting there talking to a client, we might catch a little micro expression that tells a different story. AI is not going to catch that, right?
Well,
so
your context clues and
exactly.
how they're carrying themselves. Well, and I have found, and I don't know about y'all, but AI is great, especially data research analysis, only to a certain extent. I've seen it myself, especially in certain, getting into the archives of the Smithsonian for genealogical records, right? You start to see after like 10 prompts in a higher incidence of the AI hallucinating, right? And when I mean hallucinating, it makes up an answer.
Yeah.
Like it just gives you something and it's not necessarily true. And that's where I think, back to what Daniel said, it's not going to be man versus AI. It's going to be people with AI and people without. And the people with AI, the ones that are going to thrive are going to be the ones that use it as a tool and check behind it like you would any other employee.
The speed in which it's changing, I mean, just while we're on this call alone, it's getting better and better. And depending on which platform you're using, certain platforms are better at certain things. The hallucination stuff happens, I know, on one particular platform, and you've got to be careful. There's other platforms that are better used for better industries. And once you recognize between that and the proper way to structure your agent, to structure your bot, or whatever you want to call it, you've got to put the right prompts and guardrails in place if you're going to use it in your industry, to make sure you have a lot less of that. You're 100% correct. You cannot just blindly trust this stuff, because at the end of the day, you're not blindly trusting yourself, right? These guardrails and these prompts, you're getting better at it every day, and you're realizing, oh, wow, if I only said that, if I only set it up with this limitation, or if I explained it a little better what I was looking for, the platforms are getting really, really good. I mean, the AI is getting incredible, and it's only going to continue to get better. It's us, our processes, our prompts, our guardrails, those all have to be adjusted. And then going back to an earlier conversation where we were touching on controlling your own information, people have to understand when you put that stuff into these platforms, it's no longer your information.
Yep.
Every one of these companies is collecting and using that information for profit. So if there is sensitive information, if you're using it for different clients of yours, recognize that if you don't take your agent and put it on your own closed network, and only use that agent that is in your own closed network, you're sharing information with these companies that are absolutely selling it and profiting from that information.
How do you
got
do
to
that?
sandbox it, so that way it's not as, because data's a currency now. I mean, information's a currency.
It's actually, James, it's a lot easier to structure than you would think. And there are companies out there that will come in and do it for you. But you can use the platforms themselves. So you're buying a subscription, and you can ask it to build you an agent that you can pull off and put on your own hard drive that now lives within your own network, and it's not connected to the whole world.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Because it's gotten to the point where, like, you can have an agent that best supports a realtor. I can have an agent that best supports, title, escrow, TC work, and Daniel can have one that knows everything and best supports him over at the 1031 company.
Let's say Zach has a secret sauce. Like, let's say Zach's company, he has his own secret way of doing things, and it's proprietary to his company. The second he pumps it into one of these large language models or one of these AI platforms, if it is not within and protected within his own network, that platform can very easily share that information with one of his biggest competitors, and he has no right to protect that intellectual property.
And I can attest to the fact that I have actually asked it to do that. And it has given me how big companies work all the way through. And so but sandboxing it is a lot easier than what you would think. I would recommend it because as data and everything else goes along, having that security, especially in people where we're regulated, realtors, lenders, stuff like that. It'd be just no different than if you were at a doctor's office and had an AI. HIPAA laws, violations, that has to all be sandboxed and protected. You would see the biggest, most recent case on it is Claude went to put out, what was it, Mythos or one of their programs. So before they did it, they sandboxed it into a actual defined hard drive. Now, I mean, sandboxed, it's not attached to the internet. It's not supposed to be able to get out of its confined space. Now that one did. So they had to go back and kind of alter and change how it worked. But that's essentially the same thing for all of us in our everyday life and using AI. It's changing so fast that if we don't stay up as real estate professionals on it, we're going to be left in the dust. Like it changes every second.
The other advantage and thing you have to be aware of is it's extremely addicting, and it's addicting on purpose. They're building these models to be addictive, and they're giving them away at this point. These subscription values are very, very inexpensive for the amount of work it does for you. So that builds that addiction. When you take the agent and you put it on your hard drive, you're no longer having to buy tokens. It's a low level, a low level. So all of these different platforms have the 1.0, the 2.0. They have different names that they use for them. You recognize that those higher levels and those newer models use more energy, use more compute. So what you're doing most of the time, and I'm speaking for myself and most people, 99.9%, you don't need their highest, newest compute power model. You're not working on 1,000 things at a time. That has the capabilities of doing that. You can go back to their first generation, their first model, put it on your own hard drive, and as long as you're working on specific projects, it's going to deliver you the same quality results without using so much compute and without using so much energy.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, yeah, like you said, it's cheap, $20 a month. And I'm using both Claude and ChatGPT right now. I was starting to shift over, but I'm like, I still like Chat. But
they both have their benefits and downfalls.
They do, yeah. But like what I was thinking too is like, okay, I know they're going to bump up the price. Like, what's my threshold?
That's right.
Luckily, there's competitors, right? And so that'll kind of keep things in check a little bit. But man, like the value I'm getting, I would pay a lot of money. I'm addicted. I need it.
And James, that's the exact story I hear most of the time when I get into this conversation is where right now everybody's like, wow, it's so inexpensive. I'd be willing to pay 10x, 20x, whatever. They're like, it's so important in my life now. I'm willing to pay so much more. And if you wind up building your whole entire life around one of these platforms and you don't take the time now to put some sort of guardrails in place to protect yourself, that one day they have the AOL model, right? AOL brought in a tremendous amount of subscribers. And, if they have 100 million subscribers and they raise the monthly fee by $1, they just made $100 million a month. It's the same model, and they control it because it's so addictive, and you become so dependent on these platforms. So it's buyer beware right now. Educate yourself on what you're doing.
Yep.
Well, on the other side, I'm seeing where a lot of companies are replacing their employees with AI and agents. And then they're starting to now learn that, hey, it didn't save me as much money as I thought it would because of cost. And that's the thing, is when you replace the human factor and you treat it as an employee rather than as a tool, you're going to be dependent on that AI data company keeping that cost where it is. And so you talking energy, if it changes, trying to get chips or anything else in the world, it could one day, change, and you could your company could be looking at a pretty hefty bill.
In my opinion, Zach, I think it's when companies are looking at it from a perspective of being able to reduce their expenses, I think it's the exact wrong way to look at it. It should be getting everybody to row in the same direction, teaching your entire team how to prompt it correctly, so you are all increasing revenue, increasing your bottom line, and not having to worry about cutting down, because it's a cash flow problem, right? If you're looking to cut expenses, well, just make more, do better, and if you make everybody in your company more efficient, you're just making your model more scalable. So
exactly,
I think it's just a different change, in the way you think about things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we could go on and on about this, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep things moving along. From CBS 8 San Diego, couple pleads guilty to posing as property owners, selling San Diego properties they did not own. Apparently, they were selling land they didn't own. It involved creating email addresses and bank accounts that closely resembled those of the legitimate owners. Apparently, they got away with $1 million. Although, let's see, said title insurance companies absorbed some of the financial losses, but they have agreed to pay restitution, and they're facing up to 30 years in prison. So I hear about this a lot, especially with the land. I don't know. I'm sure, Zach, you could jump in. Right? Go for it, buddy.
So it goes back to on the title side, liability, right? Because there's a reason why my company here at Venture has a heirs and genealogical section. It's because a lot of attorneys come to us now in these cases. I call them ghost parcels, land that has kind of more or less fallen into the abyss of the courthouse. They could be, a year, they could be 1 or 2 generations back. They not understand who owns it, things like that. So on this side, title's got to do a little bit more verification, right? Title company and title insurance company needs to look more into it. There is a risk factor on this because you go off of what's filed for the chain of title in real estate in the courthouse. A lot of times the states aren't doing things like that. Even to the point that once the person's deceased, your social security index shows their social, right? So a person like this can more or less spoof who they are to sell the property. Now, of course, there's heirs and things like that. On the title side, I think when you end up dealing with heirs and genealogical issues, they're going to have to actually look more into definite birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, things like that to verify. But even in the end, there's going to be a risk of that. And I've come across an individual just like this in North Carolina that was trying to sell a piece of land that he doesn't own. And I called him and he ran. It happens. Especially with land, you will see those players that will pretend to do that. And I think to help prevent that, it starts with the buyer's agent. Buyer's agent, this is the human factor. They can tell if somebody's lying or if there's something a little weird about it. If they kind of bring up that concern with title's going to take an extra look at it and then require some more information to be brought forth. It's working together and passing along that information. There's no true way on the title side to, I think, 100% stop it. But there's ways to prevent it from happening as much. And I think if a lot of the title companies and then put in those procedures to see that chain, even if, like, say, North Carolina, after 2 years, doesn't need an estate filed to sell the property. Now, in that case, we're going to have to require other information to connect that chain, right? Because there's a gap. I think this is where this is starting to kind of breed into, right? You're seeing those people where we haven't been able to actually verify this is the son of Joe Bob, right? And this is kind of where that falter has happened. But you as a realtor, I mean, what do you think? How have you come across those cases where you're just kind of like, the person selling the property for sale by owner just kind of seems like there's a few red flags?
I haven't run across it on the seller side, but I've had some buyers reach out to me cold. It's like that hardly ever happens. So it's like, that's the first red flag. And
Yeah.
I've had, I think 3 different ones, kind of similar stories. They're from out of state. They want to buy a property in Colorado. They're also looking at really high prices, which, like, ooh, that'd be great. So, and what I've done is trying to verify, like, first of all, I think all 3 of them were, like, not from the US, but they had American sounding names. Like, something's not matching there. And so that's the first thing. And then I'm like, oh, let's get on a Zoom or a phone call.
They weren't royalty, right?
Right. They were. It just happens. Yeah. I think the more we start running across this and seeing articles, we're getting better at looking and seeing those red flags.
Well,
Fraud thrives on speed and isolation, right? A wire, an email, no second set of eyes. That's where this stuff spins out of control and we lose. The structure, all of the structures that we use purposefully have friction built into them. A sponsor, a qualified intermediary, a custodian, a broker dealer, supervision, all of the chain before the money moves. People think friction is a cost, and this is one of the reasons you don't necessarily yield chase, right? In a world like this, friction is a feature. It's what keeps your money from vanishing overseas. So although it seems like you've got these layer upon layer and it's so everybody can carve a little expense off, it also protects you. It puts you in a position where there's enough eyes on it, enough people keeping everybody honest. And I think it's very, very important.
Well said. Yeah. Yep.
it's that human factor. We can tell. If you have kids, you can tell when they're going to lie to you. It just is. So it does. And it's more than just on the lending side or title or realtors. It's all of us working together in that communication line through closings and dealing in real estate to make it where we're all on the same team. Like we all want the same goal. We're all looking out for the same outcome.
It becomes more institutional. I mean, we're all exposed to a lot of mom and pop type syndications and deals out there. If it seems like it's so streamlined and there's a rush to get the money in the door, that should give you way more red flags. Supervised channels, they reduce the retail fraud surface.
Well,
So, plan before you sell and make sure that you're not rushing into something, because a lot of people are under that 1031 gun to their head, 45-day clock is ticking, and they might get convinced a program, because they're at risk of losing 30 to 40% of their capital to taxes. Man, what's the big deal? This guy can't be that bad. And they pull the trigger and they invest something only to find out later they have major buyer's remorse.
Yep.
well, in the case of this, where they were fraudulently selling the land, we just did a case in Texas last week where the attorney's office and title company, they had it for 60 days. They were stuck. They stopped. It came in from a referral. They came to us. We did a prelim genealogical search. Took us 2 days, and they had a way forward. But what the title company and the attorney's office and the buyer thought was to be true wasn't necessarily true. Like the person that had and sold the property in the family actually was not legitimately the heir. They just kind of left that out. Right, but now they have contact with the true heir, and they're getting it done on that one. It matters on some things like this that sometimes you have to bring somebody else in to help make sure everything is secure and going forward. Right,
Fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, and kind of like what we talked about earlier, it's most title companies and law firms are only as good as the escrow officer and paralegal in the seat handling it. Sometimes that extra set of eyes, like that's why our company is all paralegals. They have that 100,000 hour professional mark already met. They can look into this and help reduce liability, right? Because that's in the end what a TC company is, and for title curative is we want to reduce liability for the lenders, the buyers, and everybody involved. And sometimes it takes somebody, with that sort of niche to kind of get in there and fix it. But this is similar to the one in Texas. They didn't have actual interest to sell, but they were going to sell it. And, they would have walked away with the money and the buyer would have had no property.
Yeah. Great. Well, hey guys, let's take a break to hear from our next partner.
Are you looking to elevate your business through exceptional content? Universe Media Publishing is your gateway to success. We understand that in the world of business, content is king, but not just any content. Your business deserves content that captivates, convinces, and converts your audience into clients. At Universe Media Publishing, we specialize in crafting SEO-rich web content, persuasive copywriting, and marketing copy that resonates with your audience. We don't just write, we engage, we connect, and we deliver results. Imagine your brand's voice amplified, your message crystal clear, and your presence dominating the digital landscape. That's the power of partnering with Universe Media Publishing. Don't let your business just blend in. Stand out, be heard, and make an impact. Connect with us at Universe Media Publishing, and let's turn your vision into reality. Visit universemediapublishing.com today. Your story, our expertise. Together, we'll create magic.
Okie doke. From Fox 5, Washington, D.C., Loudoun County. I don't know how to say it. Loudoun County woman charged in rental scam, accused of locking renters out. She's got 24 counts of obtaining money by false pretenses. Authorities allege she operated a rental fraud scheme by posing as a real estate agent, collecting rent and security deposits, and then not providing the housing. So, and she also has additional charges involving abducting a minor and assault and battery from a separate incident. So apparently the minor was locked out of a home. So not sure all the details on that, but anyway, that was in Virginia. Anybody knows how to say loud? Loudoun.
It's yeah, I've seen this more than I would care to,
Yeah.
especially with some of our clients that do rentals. And I've seen a common entrance to this scam.
Yeah.
And it always comes back. I don't know if you have come across those. You put it up on the internet. There's a lockbox on the door, and it's a online, walkthrough for you to rent. It just lets you in the house. You walk around, then you can apply for the lease.
Yep.
I've seen those a lot end up. I had a particular client of mine that he put his up, and he noticed the client, the lease person, went in to view the house twice that day. Nothing happened. He then went to look at the house, and all the doors were changed, the locks were changed, and they had moved in and claimed that they had a lease with somebody else.
Yeah.
Those I see are real big, I wouldn't say causes, but signals for these type of scams.
Yeah.
Verifying who actually owns the property, who's actually leasing it, or if you've got the right people, right? And I think it still comes back down to the education part, because your average person doesn't do this for a living. They're not going to know to ask the questions, right? We're not going to say, hey, like, average person's not going to say, hey, can I see your deed? Let me see if you were the person that owns it.
Right. Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yep.
For the renter, it's a verification story, right? Always check the credentials and the licensing before any of your money moves.
Yep. Buyer beware.
And I mean, I know I've got clients that don't use property management companies. They do it themselves to save on money, and it's because they have like 2 or 3 rentals, right? Property management companies, I know people hate them, but they're great at trying to stop this, right? They've got their verification process before they start managing the property. It will prevent this from happening as well, but this particular scam causes problems on both sides. I can understand where the person renting it, they're out of deposit. They could lose three or four grand in one sitting.
Yep.
But then you're looking at the landlord side who actually owns the house, not the scammer. Well, now they can't rent it because now it's going to be locked up in litigation.
Great point. Exactly a reminder of why people eventually want out of active landlording.
Yes.
You can stay invested in real estate and step out of the management entirely with a 1031 into a passive structure, no tenants, no 2 a.m. calls, and no lockout drama. So it's, these are the conversations that we're having with a lot of the landlords, a lot of the places where you're seeing mass migration leaving certain cities because the landlords don't feel that they're being treating well, and they don't know another market. So they're reaching out and saying, hey, help us defer our taxes. We are kind of done being, we coined the phrase life after landlord. And that's what we're providing investors, is a diversified portfolio of institutional quality real estate that they can go ahead and sell their assets and retire from being active landlord. And at the end of the day, cases like this that actually bring real pain on both sides, the guy who was scammed, dropping a check for a fake lease, and the landlords that now, maybe their asset was just fake leased. They weren't even involved in the scam. These are all reasons to consider. And again, going back, know your options. Just know what is out and available to you.
Yep. I know in Denver, Colorado, our laws are definitely shifting way more towards the tenant side than the landlord. So a lot of landlords are just like, I'm just going to go with a property management company, ones that know how to deal with this stuff. So like I always tell people, if you're going to get into a single family rental as an example, Airbnb, whatever, in your underwriting, add in that 10%, like, because there's no guarantee you're going to want to be a landlord, like an active landlord. Like just put that in there, because at some point you're going to be like your clients, Daniel, where they're just like, I'm done.
I'm here in New York. I'm in New York, and you know what the landlord environment is like here. And we have offices in California, we have offices in Florida, and it's just a different environment. So it really comes down to what your appetite for that kind of battle, that uphill battle. It's not that there's no opportunity, and it's not that it's not a good place to potentially own real estate. It just brings with it a whole other level of challenges. And if you have those challenges, you better surround yourself with the right centers of influence and build that right team to help you get through those challenges.
Yep.
Oh, and I saw it after COVID. Everybody bought and decided to become an investor during COVID. Buy a house, passive income is going to be easy. And then about a year and a half after that, I saw all the same people selling them. And I'm a curious individual, so I asked why. And it was all the same story. They went to YouTube University, understood, hey, I can buy a house, we can cash flow it. I don't have to do anything. I just sit on the couch and make money. And then they realized, oh, wait, it's not true. You get those calls late at night, things like that. And a lot of them did not budget in property management companies. And if you do that in the beginning, you have that option, right? You can't, it's hard to do that after you bought the property and all that, to kind of budget that in. But in the beginning, if you're buying it, you budget it in, you have that option if you need it. And 9 times out of 10, most people need it and want it. And it does help prevent issues and scams on the rental property. Because understand too, is you as a landlord is also passing on liability to your property management company, whose sole job is to ensure that property is taken care of and leased correctly. So it's also, I know it costs, but it's also providing you with more security and less liability.
Yeah, that is a great point. It's not just the money. We're a very litigious country, and boy, yeah. Well, hey, let's jump to our next article from the Colorado Sun. This is Denver. What the heck? What the heck is happening in downtown Denver? Is the article talking about commercial real estate in downtown Denver. Huge vacancy in the office space down there. People just not wanting to go down there. We had a pretty bad homeless population that was really making people, hesitate. And so there's vacancy, rents are flat. Some of the properties are distressed now. So we have the Downtown Development Authority approved, a voter approved tax increment financing to support these things that they're doing. So like office to residential conversions, we've talked about that a lot on this show. There's some challenges to it, but it's an option to turn those offices into apartments, turning them into small businesses. And they also are purchasing Denver pavilions, which is kind of an area there's restaurants and retail shops and a movie theater. So looks like they're buying that and going to do some stuff with it. So
I mean, so we have a lot where I'm at in certain areas where they've changed what would once be your strip mall centers,
Mhm.
and you'll have businesses underneath, right? You'll have 3 stories, build businesses underneath, and you'll be able to live in the top 2 floors. And they've kind of structured and changed the shopping center into that, and it's doing quite well. A lot of the younger generations want to be able to leave their house and go walk to get something to eat and things like that. It also, I think, does help some with the housing issues, especially what we have here in the Southeast, where, face it, North Carolina by 2029, our governor gave an executive order. We need 759,000 homes by the
Wow.
end of 2029.
Oh, 20. Yeah, that's
That's
a
like
lot.
quarter of a million a year.
Yeah.
So changing some of these buildings that have been empty as commercial into repurposing it could be a great benefit. I've seen one state change a mall into a high school.
Oh.
And they food court, the cafeteria, and they had the different sections, the shopping centers of the mall as they offer the school rooms. I mean, it worked pretty good for it.
That's cool.
There's huge economical hurdles to get over. A building that's built as an office building isn't designed to be a multifamily. Your plumbing is not prepared for it. Your escape routes are not prepared for it. So you've got to look at what is the replacement cost. Do you just destroy the building, and it's probably cheaper in a lot of times to just tear the building down, and if you're gonna put a multifamily there, then do it. But the economics don't work. So, and that's where you get into qualified opportunity zones and the OZs. A lot of these areas will be circled now, and they'll be in an OZ. And if the fundamentals in that area, to your point, Zach, if the fundamentals, the zone fundamentals work, and the demographics support a need for that, they'll get them in an OZ. And now you're enticing the funds to come in where it might not have made a good amount of economic sense. Now with the tax deferral that you're getting, and the potential for a real upside, the potential for a real tax-free, as long as you hold it for 10 years, tax-free upside. And you only have to invest your gain, which makes it attractive. But, picture an investor, I guess, going back to the Denver story, is picture an investor that's holding one aging office building downtown, and all their risk is in one asset class, one sector, one zip code. A 1031 isn't just about deferring your taxes. If it's done right, it's a moment to diversify across different asset classes, different markets, different investment sponsors. It's a real expensive mistake, potentially, to defer into another concentrated bet just to dodge a gain. That's deferral without discipline. That's kind of what I was alluding to early in the conversation, is you want to really get ahead of any of your sales, any of your real estate sales, any of your business sales. Planning is key. If it's just about deferral, you're going to make some mistakes.
Good point.
Well, and in case of this with the commercial one, it is difficult restructuring it and doing it, and I think that's where it's not a one size fits all. So it should be a case by case basis. I mean, I see it we had an old Kmart in my city. It's sat there for about 6-7 years now. It's being redone for indoor storage.
Yep.
So seeing some of the repurposing on it, whether it's commercial or not, is always going to be a good thing. But I think that's going to be majorly a balance between the local government and the investor that's wanting to come in there, and what can be underwritten and done. Because that's a big thing too.
repurposing definitely makes a lot of sense, and we're seeing a lot of success at it too. It's just what asset type you're going to do. I'll give you an example. In my local community, they took an old Sears Roebuck that was at the end of a very large indoor shopping mall, and now it's a beautiful high-tech office building for one of the largest hospital networks in the area. So employing a tremendous amount of jobs. And because now you've brought in all of these professionals, it's still attached to the mall. All of the other stores in that mall now and the restaurants are flourishing because you were able to move such an important employer in the space. So repositioning has a lot of success stories as well.
Converting to office. Interesting.
Yeah. But medical, I mean, this is mission critical medical, very sticky tenant. I mean, once they put in the lead walls for, some of the machinery that they need and things like that, the hospital network makes a tremendous investment prior to leasing. So it's a very, very sticky tenant.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
Well, all right. Let's go to our next article. It says from Marketplace, marketplace.org. AI wealth is already sending San Francisco real estate soaring, kind of like the tech boom, but apparently it says median home prices have risen significantly, bidding wars, some sellers even willing to accept pre-IPO AI company shares as payment.
Wow.
Yeah, right? I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I mean, it's tremendous.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the flip side, it did say that the tech sector had some job losses too. So, the AI money's affecting San Francisco.
I'm seeing the same thing down in near Cocoa Beach.
Okay.
Which it's
the SpaceX market.
Yeah, well, SpaceX, Northrop, growing up. There's a few other big military-tied contracting companies down there for manufacturing drones, AI, and technology for space exploration. My wife is from there, and after the Columbia and the space shuttle crash, they moved to North Carolina because it turned that area into a ghost town, and it's now good to see that it's not just space exploration, but it's all tied into AI and tech and drones and stuff like that. Your aeronautical sciences, it's coming back. It's nice to see that it's getting back to what it was, but it's definitely affected the housing prices and things like that down in that area.
The Bay Area is riddled with tech money. I mean, that is that is your Silicon Valley, San Jose area, and this is a capital gains tsunami in slow motion, and it's going to be it's the single most important timing lesson that I teach, right? Whether these investors are dealing with an IPO or a secondary share sale, or just selling a home that doubled in value because of all the money that's in the area. And I apologize for my lighting issue. It's every time I stop moving, my motion light is going off. You're getting a situation where the tax planning has to happen before the liquidity event, not after. And the most expensive calls that I get is the one that starts with, I already sold. And then, tools like opportunity zones and 1031 exchanges, they have hard timing rules. So, we have to plan before closing. And if you do that, then you're keeping your options open. If you plan after, then you've usually triggered some sort of tax bill. So when you have such pockets of highly appreciated stock and highly appreciated real estate, because everyone's cashing in on whether it's the energy boom, the tech boom, AI, all of what the world is going through right now is creating a lot of millionaires. It's creating a lot of wealth out there. And in the areas that this exists, a rising tide lifts all ships. So those people that are earning, they're spending money in the local areas. Everyone's making more. It's driving real estate prices higher. So you have embedded gains. And then you have tax liability that these embedded gains create. And you should be talking to centers of influence, firms like Fortitude, and your surrounding centers of influence to plan prior to selling, because there are tools that we have access to. And again, more education. Get on 1031dst.com. Sign in, log in, watch the videos, because we have a wealth of information on there. It is educational. We're not selling a specific product. It's telling you what structures exist to help you plan and see if it's a good fit for you. Sniff it out, check it out, see if it works. If your attorneys, if your accountants say, hey, yeah, that's a good opportunity, we should have further conversations. Explore it. But great point to bring up these specific areas in the country right now that are seeing some significant gains.
Yep.
Well, and I would have to say that's what I tell our clients all the time. If you're looking to invest, you follow the companies. If you see companies coming in, putting money in, working out those deals with the local community, you're going to know there's going to be an uptick in pricing because of the job creation. Now, on the downside, if you're dependent on one market to push up housing prices and anything happens to that market, you could be in a world of hurt. Right? It's the same as, NASA in the Columbia explosion with Cocoa Beach. Once the explosion happened, NASA went out. It was a ghost town.
Huntsville, Alabama.
Every business and houses just collapsed in value. So I'm curious to see how it's going to play out in some of these places that are solely dependent on one particular thing to bolster up the housing market. Just like with the integration of AI and companies trying to make that decision to, essentially replace jobs, stuff like that, that's all going to affect us in the end. So it could be great now, but, timing, like Daniel said, if you're buying, you keep an eye on it, timing's right, and if you invest, 1031 and get out, because it's going to be the same as the stock market. If it's solely based on AI, if those companies have those fluctuations, you will eventually see it in that real estate market.
That is a fact. We underwrite very closely. If we're looking at a Class A 400-unit garden-style apartment complex, and we find out that there's, one car manufacturer in the area that represents 30% of the tenants, and if that manufacturer goes out, we're going to be trying to replace quite a bit of vacancy. We better know, what that supply looks like out there on the market and what that demand looks like. Can we fill this building? We've seen it where Huntsville, Alabama, recently had a tremendous amount of new build multifamily. And there were a few different employers that left the market, and a lot of developers were sitting there. All right, well, now what do we do? We got to fill these things. We're on variable or some sort of construction loan. We have to stabilize the product before we can refinance and put traditional financing on it. So what do? We're going to give away apartments. We're going to fill this building. We're going to give 6 months free rent. And now you own a building next door. What do you think your tenants are doing? Are they going to stay and pay you, or are they going over this brand new Class A garden style apartment complex that's giving away 6 months free rent? So it takes a while then to get through that. And the market changes, it shifts, and it does settle in. And usually it repairs itself. and new employers come in and all of that. But it is a cycle, and it can be a very painful one, and it can be an even more painful one if you're attached to specific timelines with your financing.
Yep. Yeah, we're seeing that in the apartment syndication space. So many people getting pinched. I mean, big headlines on that, and opportunities too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my partners in Phoenix, gobbling up properties that are 30% discounts and more, right? So
Yep.
I'm in the co-living space too, single family, rent by the room, and those apartment buildings with those incentives have kind of affected our level of affordability. An $800 room is getting affected by studio apartments where somebody could pay pretty close to that 800, maybe
Yeah.
1,000, and get their own private bathroom. So we're seeing the trickle down of that. Tons of overbuilding of apartments in Denver. So anyway, let's go to our final fun news item from MDTV. AI-powered law firm wins court case against human attorneys in a world's first. So this is in the UK. Garfield AI, an AI-powered UK law firm with a chatbot capable of drafting legal documents, won a £7,000, call it dollars, small claims dispute for a freelance HR executive over unpaid fees from a hospitality business. So it said the client paid £400 for the service, and the AI prepared all the documents, but it wasn't just the AI. So they actually hired a barrister, which is basically, think of them like an attorney, that came in after everything was gathered and won this case. So
it was a tool that and I've seen this here in the States, that they've used it to collect all the case law, all the information that applies to the laws that they're using, and to break down all the facts of everything that's happened. Because on their side, on the litigation side, you're looking through hundreds of emails, communications, documents, and so I can see where this would work, but they still needed a barrister or an attorney, right? Because that interpretation and that argument still counts. Like that actually still matters on that, because you have a fact, but how you present the fact does matter.
Yeah,
especially in this case.
I mean, I love it. I love it. AI, crushes high volume, routine legal work and financial work, but notice they still put a human in the courtroom.
Yep.
When the stakes get real, you want a licensed human whose name is on the advice. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss. And you've seen some of these graduation acceptance speeches come out, and the word AI is mentioned, and all the kids start booing because they're having difficulties getting jobs, and they think it's AI's fault. I think it's the wrong mindset. I think these kids should be diving in and learning how to prompt it correctly, learning how to use it and take advantage of it, because you will be more powerful and more productive. And that's what's showing up in courts today. I've dealt with many attorneys in my day, and a lot of them I don't think offer the value. You do all of the legwork, and the only time some of these attorneys feel like they're working for you is when you're on the phone with them and you've done all the legwork. You've supplied them with all the information. So not all of them. I don't want to paint it with a broad brush, but you're minimizing, right? You're minimizing that now because, one, you have the ability to sit in your room and get expert information and not worry about asking stupid questions because AI is not judging you. So you put together these great questions, and attorneys are paid by billable hours, many of them. You get on a phone call, the clock started. Well, if you're extremely well organized and you already have a package to hand them, here, review this, then we'll get on the phone. This is where I'm at. Tell me where I'm wrong. And I mean, I've seen people use it that I'm connected with for divorce cases, custody cases. I think contract law will largely be erased because I think in order to have an unbiased, fair deal, it's going to be my AI talking to your AI, and they're going to come up with a deal that's just palatable for both of us. It's not going to be in my favor. It's not going to be in your favor. And I think that that's the whole purpose of a lot of this, right? So it is interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, that covers the news portion of the show. I'd like to thank our sponsors, United States Real Estate Investor Advertising, Real Expert Talks, and Universe Media Publishing. Of course, thanks to our guests, Zach Thomas and Daniel Raup. Why don't you guys let people know how they can connect with you? We'll start with Zach.
Yeah, if anybody needs anything as far as curative work, TC transactions with paralegals, feel free to check out my website. It's www.irithventures.com. Spelled just like it is right there. And yeah, I'm always open to chat, and my door is always open.
Fantastic. Daniel.
Yep. Daniel Raup, Fortitude Investment Group. We help real estate investors and really anyone staring down a capital gains event. Keep more of what they built, and using 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trusts, and other tax advantage structures. The easiest place for you to start is going to be 1031dst.com. That's 1031dst.com. And the one thing I'll leave everybody with is plan before you sell. Every good strategy in my world has to happen before the closing. So make the call early.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, guys. Again, I'm your host, James Brown.
Thanks.
Don't forget, if you're an investor-focused agent, you can apply to join our network, or if you're an investor looking to connect with an investor-focused agent in your market, go to unitedstatesrealestateinvestor.com/agents. Also, huge thanks to our founder and producer, Antonio Holman with United States Real Estate Investor. Follow and subscribe to This Month in Real Estate Investing at thismonthinrealestateinvesting.com or your favorite podcast app. And if you run across any interesting news, events, or have suggestions for expert guests like you had today, feel free to share by emailing Antonio at unitedstatesrealestateinvestor.com. And remember, when one door closes, another door opens to financial freedom. See you next month.